Hello, everyone. Welcome to my knits and my latest WIP. My name is Karen, and I'm joining you from Toronto, Canada. Happy 2026. I hope you had a wonderful holiday, and this is the start for us to begin our knitting for the new year. I'm going to share with you today my December knit, so grab a beverage or grab your craft and sit down, relax, and let me show you what I did through the month of December. Here you are seeing the knits or my finished objects for the month of December 2025. Because most of my family lives across Canada, across the province of Ontario, out west in Canada, and also in USA and in Costa Rica, I have to do a lot of my holiday knitting throughout the year, and I scramble in the fall so that I can get it into the mail. That leaves December freer for me to do whatever I like, and I'm not in scramble mode. So these are my knits for the month of December. A few are for me and others are gifts, but they are gifts for the future. So let me show you what I did as I was driving. I wasn't driving, I was in the car. As I was traveling to see family and friends throughout the month, I had an opportunity to pick up and do a number of knits. The month of December, I was watching a number of podcasters sharing knits that you could do during the month of December in hopes to finish them for a Christmas gift. And one of the knits that I was introduced to that was a free pattern on Ravelry were these beautiful Lynn socks by Dawn Henderson. I think they're Lynn, not Line. I hope I'm saying that right. And the reason these socks caught my eye is because of the beautiful trim of these little anklet socks. And I'm just going to hold this up so that you can see that. But look at the beautiful edging that she has done in the design of these socks, which I just think is really cute. So I decided to make these for my niece. I made her some mittens out of this yarn for the fall that were dragonfly mittens. I had this yarn left over, so it was a perfect opportunity to use this fingering weight yarn because this pattern calls for 2.25 millimeter needles, a US 1, as well as 2.75 US 2, and it calls for fingering weight yarn. So I had this yarn left over, as I mentioned. I used a 2.25 millimeter throughout the whole thing. I didn't switch. She does the switching at the cuff to the body of the sock, and I didn't bother. I just kept it the same the whole way through. So this yarn is a Pro Lana Golden Sock Fashion 2 yarn, and it is a sock yarn, so there is some nylon to give it some strength. And let me just tell you a little bit about the construction of these beautiful socks. It is a cuff down to the toe knit. You start with this beautiful trimmed cuff, and then you move into the ankle, and right away it is a heel flap and a gusset, and the top part of the foot is a ribbing all the way down to the toe. And then I just finished with Kitchener stitch rounded toe, and those are the lovely Lynn socks that I'm going to give to my niece. I also put my KarebearKnitwear tag on there, fold it in half, and it says Care Knit, and on the other side it says Bear Wear. So I've blocked and washed, and these are ready to go, but these are a future gift. It's for her birthday, and that won't be till the springtime, but happy to use up the yarn, and I know she's going to enjoy the color because she enjoyed the color of the mittens. Will I make these again? So I thought they were a pretty unique um, edging. That was the first time I had done that edging. It was something new that I learned. So yeah, I was happy to do that, and I'll be happy to do that again if the need arises for a cute pair of ankle socks. So those are the Lynn socks. The design is by Dawn Henderson, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry. This next finished object is one that I made for our home. It is a little bear by Melody Hoffman. And if you've seen earlier episodes, I have made this little bear, but a brown little bear in the past, and I absolutely loved it. And I had gifted it to a friend. So I thought, I'd really like one of these in our home, in our guest room where some of the kids are up playing. So I thought this would be ideal um, for that room, and I decided to go through my stash and find some yarn that I could use up, and I would make Little Bear by Melody Hoffman. It is a purchase pattern on Ravelry. It calls for a sport weight yarn, 3.75 millimeter needles or US 5. In my case, I was just using whatever I had in my stash. I had a worsted weight yarn and I used 3.5 millimeter needles because I don't have 3.75, and it took about 55 grams of yarn. This yarn that I had in my stash was from Belfast Mills, which is a mill on the east coast of Canada in the province of Prince Edward Island. And so I had used up that charcoal black yarn and I ran out. So if you look really closely at the top of Little Bear, you will see that the yarn color changes slightly. So I went back into my stash and grabbed this Elamani Yarn Royale. It's an alpaca yarn, and I just finished off his ears and the top part with that yarn. So, and I'm happy with it. You can't really see it, and really when they're changing the kids up here in the room, the kids don't really care. So let me tell you about the construction of Little Bear. It is a bottom-up construction. You make one uh, leg in the round, put it on hold, and then you do the next one, you join it in the round, and you continue up until this section here where you put in the nose, the face, and by Intarsia knitting, and then you continue on, and then you finish off one ear, and then you finish off the other ear. You sew up the bottom, you sew up the top, and you stuff it. I made some changes. So I did this bottom up as she instructs, but when I got to this section here, I just put a removable stitch marker and I continue in the round. And then I close up this ear, I Kitchener stitch in between, I Kitchener stitch between the legs, and then I put this ear on barber cord, and I do duplicate stitch for the muzzle here, and put on the nose, I put in the eyes, and then I wash it. Once it's dry, I stuff it and I close up that ear, and I do a couple other things. I added this little tail right here. She doesn't have it in her pattern, but I really like it. So I added a little tail. I just pick up about 4 stitches and do a quick little I-cord and bind off. And then I also add my Care Bear knitwear tag on, and yeah, that's Little Bear Stuffy. I just love this. I didn't learn anything new. I could do the intarsia knitting, but it's just so fast to keep going in the round, and the duplicate stitch isn't very much, so I find it really easy and quick to do. Would I make this again? Absolutely. I think this would be a great gift to make with a baby blanket or a baby outfit because it can serve as a little pillow, but can also serve as a little stuffy. So for sure, I'm going to be making more of Little Bear. So it is a purchase pattern by Melody Hoffman. Check out her designs. Check out her Little Bear. It's really cute. This next finished object, or I should say objects, because there are a couple or a few in this project. So this is the Drops design. It's the Baby Dove set. I have made it in the past, but I made it again using up some of the yarn that I had, and I decided to change it a little bit. So it is a free pattern on Ravelry. It's the Baby Dove set, and I'll put a picture of it in here. And it calls for DK weight yarn, 3.5 millimeter needles, and 4 millimeter needles, or US 4 and 6. And I used 3.5 millimeter needles and 4 millimeter needles with a DK weight yarn. And it took me, just going to check here on Ravelry, but I think it took me for the poncho alone 93 grams of yarn. The yarn that I used is the Burnett's Softy Baby Jacquards, and this is in the colorway Faded Blooms. I've used it before, and it's such a gorgeous yarn. Let me show you this baby poncho. So this yarn doesn't look anything special in the ball, but it knits up so beautifully, and I can see why they call it Faded Blooms. So let me tell you a little bit about the construction of this poncho. It is a bottom-up construction, and there's a ribbing at the bottom. And then in the body of the actual poncho, there are two different sets of cables. So there's that single cable there, and then you'll see in the middle, there's a double cable there in the middle, and the same thing at the back and at the sides, again, that single cable. And am I showing it there? Let me just double check that I'm actually showing you that single cable. So there are a number of cables in the pattern, and then it calls for garter stitch between the cables, and then you do a ribbing and cast off at the top. I don't do the garter stitch in between. I do a stockinette stitch. I find it a lot faster, and I just like it more between the cables. I'm not really a fan of garter. I'm okay with it with some things, but I prefer this poncho, and I've made this a few times in plain, a cream color, and then I've made another one in this exact same color. And so I thought I'd make this set to put away as a future baby gift in my cupboard, because I know I'm going to need more of these. So it's a bottom-up construction, pretty quick knit. I didn't learn anything new. I've done this before. I added my label onto it. And will I do it again? Yeah. And the reason I really like this is because it fits so easy, and it's easy for parents just to pop on, and it still can be really warm for the little one. So I made that poncho, and to go with it, if you take a look at the Baby Dove pattern by Drops Design, they have a cute little beanie that has the cables on it. But I wanted to make something different this time, so I didn't go for the beanie. I decided on a different hat. So let me show you the hat that I made. This hat is the sun hat designed by Bobby S. It is a free pattern on Ravelry, and it also calls for DK weight yarn, 3.5 millimeter needles, 3.75 millimeters, so a US 4 and a US 5. And I used 3.5 and a 4 millimeter needle, DK weight yarn, and I used for this hat 42 grams of yarn. Check it out. The top is so super cute. It has a lacy top, and I'm just make sure I'm holding it so you can see that beautiful lace at the top of this hat. So it is a top-down construction. You do that lacy section, and I just want to show you that lace. And then you move along to the next height of the hat, which is just a plain stockinette stitch. But instead, I added 4 of those simple cables that are in the poncho. And I thought that would make it match a little bit better with the poncho because the poncho has the cables. And then you move on to do the brim, increasing for the brim to give it that little curly finish. And I had stopped the cables when I went into the brim. And that is the Sun Hat by Bobby S. Couple other changes that I made. I added those cables, but I also added the I-cord. So the I-cord ties were not included, but I thought just to make sure it stays on, and dependent on the size of the baby's head, this would be an opportunity to keep it secure. So I added, they're about 14 centimeters long, and I just sewed them in a little ways into the hat on both sides. And so that is the hat that I'm going to include with the poncho. Would I do this hat again? Absolutely. I just thought it was so, so cute with that lace on top and that curly finish on the brim. And I think it's going to look great with the little poncho. So to go with the poncho, the hat, I decided to do some footwear. And if you look at the original pattern, their footwear is a pair of socks. And I wanted to change that again. So instead of the socks, I did these little booties. And I'm just looking for the other one. There we go. I did the baby hug boots. And the design is by Mariana Mao. And Mariana's patterns for children are fabulous. If you haven't looked at her Ravelry listing, you've got to take a look. Mariana does some great work, but check out these little booties. They are so super cute. And they have this cuff at the top that you fold down. And she calls them hug boots. They kind of look like Uggs, but they are super cute. And the beautiful thing about Mariana's patterns is that she has a number of sizes for her hats, these little booties, and yeah. Anyway, these booties call for 3.75 millimeter needles, US 5. I used 3.5 because I don't have the 3.75, and DK weight yarn. And these booties took about 30 grams of yarn. Again, I used the faded blooms, and I made the booties for 9 months because I think I did the poncho for the 6 to 9 month size. So I thought I would do, yeah, I did the poncho in the 6 to 9 month size. So I did the booties in the 9 month. The booties are a bottom-up construction. So you start at the you're knitting bottom, and you're knitting flat, and then you move into the boot section. And then when you get to the ribbing, you just continue flat. At that point, that's where I change it. I knit at that point in the round. And then that way, the only thing I have to sew together is the back of the booty and then the bottom of the footwear. So Will I make these again? Oh yeah, I bet you I've made these over a dozen times. I add them to little sweaters. I add them to a number of different gifts for little ones. They're an easy knit, um, and they're just so cute. And I actually learned about this pattern from a colleague of mine who was a knitter, and he said to me, "Have you seen these? These are the cutest things." And so he showed me the pattern, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I love it." So I've made them over and over, and friends have asked me, "Care, what's that pattern?" And so I have shared this pattern with a number of people. They are super cute, and they stay on. So it's a bonus for the parents, and it's a great little set. So for this set, I have the poncho, and I have this beautiful sun hat, and I have these little hug boots. And I'm going to put that away in my cupboard, and I'm sure I'm going to be gifting it very shortly to someone who will be happy to receive. So the next finished object is a gift I made for myself. This is the rosy sweater with a little modification. So I'm just going to step back so that you can see it, because this is what I made for myself and I wore it at Christmas. So that is my rosy sweater, and I saw this sweater on Instagram, and I thought, I think I might like to make that for myself. So I bought the pattern and I put it into my queue, and I was just waiting to buy the yarn for it. And while I was waiting, I noticed on Instagram that I was seeing the same sweater, but some people had only one row of roses. And I thought, yes, that's what I want to do, because I think the two roses were maybe a bit much for me. It looks beautiful, but it's just quite not me. So when I saw one set of roses, I thought, that's what I'm going to do. And then I realized that this design by Lynette is a different pattern. So she has one pattern that has the two sets of roses, and then she has another pattern that has the rose set of roses in the yoke. Plus, she has another pattern that is for mittens with the roses. So if you're interested in the roses pattern, check it out. It is a purchase pattern on Ravelry. All three of those are purchase patterns. And yeah, make yourself something with roses. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit more about this program. It calls for lace plus fingering to form a DK weight. So you're using 4 millimeters or US 6 and 4.5 millimeters a US 7. I was gifted in December before Christmas. I was with a friend and she had gifted me this gorgeous yarn. It is a chunky mohair. It is ballerina chunky mohair by Santa's Garn. And she so knows me. This color, uh, this gold and this wine red are just so me. And but it's a chunky yarn, and I really wanted to use it for this rosy sweater. So I did a swatch, and to get gauge, I had to drop down to 3 millimeter needle with a chunky yarn. So I washed the swatch, and it still seemed like it was going to be pretty flowy, and I was going to be okay with that fiber. So I started the sweater, and you're knit, and it's a top-down construction, so you're working in the back, doing short rows, and then you connect to the front. And I connected to the front, and I was thinking, is this feeling a bit thick? And in my head, I'm thinking, do I persevere? Because if I don't like it, to pull mohair apart is a nightmare. I mean, you can put it in the freezer, but still to take the yarn apart and to use it for another project, I was like, oh my goodness, do I really want to go through all that? So I thought, no, it still feels good. I'm going to continue on. So I continued on, and I got to the point where I had finished um, part of the roses, and I put it on barber cord and I tried it on. And I thought, oh, yes, I'm liking this. This is going to work. So then, instead of going on to do the rest of the body, I did the neckline. And I finished the neckline, tried it on. I thought, oh, yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm going to persevere. And so I continued on with the body and finished up with the ribbing, and then got onto my sleeves again, working with 3mm needles and a chunky yarn. Crazy. Not sure I'll do that again, but I absolutely love this sweater. So I made, oops, a little technical glitch there. Anyway, I was saying I made a size 2 with this pattern, and it's perfect size for me. I like it a little bit bigger and baggier. And a couple other things that I changed. I watched one podcaster who documented her journey of creating this garment, and she talked about how she adds elastic into the top part of the tubular bind off at the neckline and also at the cuff. So I thought, this being a chunky mohair, I'm going to try it. So I've added it in, I've washed it, and I've had this on all through the Christmas holiday, and it's held up really well, and hopefully it'll continue to hold up. And I might do that going forward with lighter fibers if that works out with this one. So will I do this again? I think so. I think I would make this rosy sweater again, but not with this yarn. I think I would make it with a fingering weight, and yeah, I'd get a DK weight yarn and um, not make it with this chunky yarn. But I do absolutely love this sweater, and I love the color. I didn't learn anything new. I had done color work before, and the tubular, or the Italian bind off. So that was all new for me, but I do love it. A great, great knit, great design by Lynette. It is the Rosie sweater, somewhat modified. So my next finished object, something a little different, but it does relate to my knitting. I have a number of these project bags that I have made for myself in the past. I'm not a sewer, but I follow people on YouTube and managed to make some great bags that I can use. And anyway, what I noticed was I needed some little pouches inside those larger bags to hold all my scissors and the stitch markers and so on. So I noticed that my husband had placed a pair of blue jeans into our Goodwill bag, and I said to him, hey, can I pull those out and um, upcycle them? He's like, I don't care what you do with them. So I pulled out those blue jeans, and I made a number of pouches that I could use from for and inside my knitting bags. So I went to a local sewing store. They have a number of notions and buttons and zippers, and I got the lining, and I got the zippers, and I got the thread, and I followed Jan Howell's YouTube video. She has a YouTube channel called You Make It Simple, and she has a tutorial, a step-by-step tutorial on how to make a zippered pouch. So here's an example of the zipper pouches I made from a pair of blue jeans. They do have a boxed bottom. They do have a zipper. They are lined, and they have this nice little finish at the edge for these little pouches. I put my label on them, and from just the legs of the jeans, I think I got about 6 of these pouches. I've given a couple to girlfriends, and I've added these to my knitting bags to hold all of my little notions when I'm knitting. So great tutorials online from Jan Howell. Take a look at her channel. This next finished object is actually bear number 7. I have made this teddy bear toy designed by Maria Ermolova 7 times and gifted these to friends and family members with little ones. So I had some yarn left over from some baby knits earlier this year, and I decided to use the yarn to make another bear and put it in my gift cupboard because I know I'm going to be gifting more of these to little ones to come. So this is a purchase pattern by Maria Ermolova. I've made a number of her stuffies. As I said, I've made the bear 7 times, and I just absolutely love the way she constructs her patterns. It works for me, and they are purchase patterns on Ravelry. It calls for Aran weight yarn with a 3.5 millimeter needle and a US 4. I used the Caron Simply Soft. It's a feathered gray color that I had left over in my stash. And I used 3 millimeter needles, US 2.5, just because I like the tighter knit, because probably because I overstuff them, but I like the tighter knit. So let me tell you a little bit about this teddy bear. So it really is very little knitting because you're knitting the head, the body, the arms, and the legs. And that's not a lot of knitting. Like, look how tiny these little arms are. And Maria's pattern, if you prefer to knit in the flat, she has the instructions for that. If you like to knit in the round, you can do this whole thing, the arms, the head, the body in the round, and that's me. I love doing things in the round so I don't have to sew too much together. So you start with the head, you work the head in the round, and then you stuff it, and you pick up at the base of the head for the body, and you knit the body, and then you stuff it, and you seal it off at the bottom. Then you make the arms, and they are singular pieces, and then you make the leg that are also singular pieces, and then you sew them onto the body. And I have purchased, because I make so many of these stuffies, I have purchased these super long darning needles, and they work great to go through the stuffy to add the arms and the legs. And the brilliant piece is that Maria's pattern is so detailed with pictures and diagrams and video to show you how to do the shaping, the sinking of the eyes, putting on the eyebrows, um, using safety eyes. I don't use safety eyes. I just crochet. In this case, I made a blue-eyed bear. I just crocheted a 5-chain link, and then I sew it into the socket for the eyes. She shows you how to do the nose, how to attach the arms. All of the detail are in video as well as text instruction for both flat and in the round. She has all of that in her patterns. I love her patterns. So that is the teddy bear toy design by Maria, and I enjoy making her patterns. Check them out. She has all kinds of animals from the zoo, plus she also has the animals from the farm. That's been her focus lately. So if you're into making stuffies or you're a little hesitant about making them, check out Maria's pattern. She's on Ravelry, she's on Instagram. She's known as Polishka Bunny, and you'll find all her beautiful patterns. They are purchase patterns, but they're well worth it. If you have a number of little ones, I've made this 7 times. This next finished object is also by Maria Ermolova, and it's called the penny dress. I had some of the blooms, um, faded blooms, Burnett Softy Baby yarn left over. So I thought, if I'm going to have this bear go with that little outfit, how about I make a little dress for the bear? I had bought this penny outfit from Maria, well, probably about almost a year ago. I thought I would make some clothing for the animals that I've made from her, because I've made a monkey and a goose and a snowman and these bears. And so I thought I might actually make some of the clothing. And she has amazing uh, clothing for the stuffies that she makes. Anyway, I never used it. And so now with this leftover yarn, I thought this is a perfect opportunity to try Maria's clothing for her stuffies. It is a purchase pattern on Ravelry. It calls for 3mm needles, 2.5 US, and to use a sport weight yarn. I had this DK weight yarn. I just used a 3mm needle because I wasn't really concerned about the exact fit of this dress, and it took about 30 grams of yarn. And as I said, I used that faded blooms that was left over from the poncho set that I had done and showed earlier. So let me tell you a little bit about this dress. It is a top-down construction. You're knitting it back and forth. It has no texture to it, but she did have some detailing in the pattern that you could add to it. I didn't bother just because with this faded blooms, I thought that there was already a lot of detail in the little dress. Um, so I just left that part. There is a little bit of a pattern in the textured pattern in the um, pattern from Maria. I left some of that out as well because I just didn't think I needed it, and with the faded blooms coloring. I ended up putting, she does call for buttons, probably not as many as I put on, but she calls, I think, for 2 buttons, and I just had 4, so I thought, well, I'm going to use them up. And I just crocheted a little chain, a loop, to do up these little buttons. If I did it again, instead of doing that little looping that I did, Maria has actual buttonholes in the dress, and I think I would do that instead rather than doing what I had done. But I wasn't really concerned, as it was just going to be on the back of the teddy bear's dress, so I let it be as it is. So that is the penny dress. It is a purchase pattern, and I think it has other pieces with it. It's a dress with a little coat. There's maybe some little booties. You take a look at it on Ravelry and make the choice whether or not it's something for you. But it wasn't just the dress alone. There was more to that purchase. So this is going into my gift cabinet along with the poncho set, the bear, and this little penny dress. And the pattern's by Maria. So this next finished object is a sweater for me. I love this designer. My favorite thing's knitwear. I've made so many um, beautiful garments by this designer, and I like the way they write the patterns, and it works for me. So I had picked sweater number 33, had it in my queue, and was waiting to get the yarn for this. And I actually purchased the yarn on a Black Friday sale. And this is a purchase pattern, by the way, on Ravelry. And the pattern calls for 4mm and 5mm needles, which is a US 6 and a US 8, to form an Aran weight. So you could do lace with worsted or whatever. Anyway, I used 4.5 millimeter needle US 7 and a 5.5 US 9, and I made a size small. And the yarn that I used for this sweater, and I'm going to show you, was a Peer Gynt yarn, a brown, and I also used a Drops alpaca silk that I had never used before, and that was a light gray. So I put those two together to make this beautiful, cozy, cozy, warm, super warm sweater. And let me tell you about this sweater. It is a top-down construction. So you start right up here and go right into that beautiful ribbing that then extends right into the raglan and then goes right down the side of the sweater. And it is a split seam with the front covered just slightly over the back in that split seam. And I may have to put in some extra video so you can see this because it's a bit dark in this room today because we have a very gloomy day here in Toronto. But I absolutely love the detail in the sweater. This raglan carries the collar ribbing right into the raglan. And what I love is the designer gives you a heads up and says, read this first because this raglan increases not typical. And so I did that. I followed what she said. And it's true. So that was something new that I learned. I had never done that before. And I really enjoyed that process. And then it is a split um, garment. And when you split, that's where that ribbing, that wide ribbing comes into play again at the bottom. And it's quite a long rib section, about 6 inches, I think I have put in there. So that is sweater number 33. It is very warm because of the choice of yarn that I used. So if I did this again, what I might change is I think I would use a different yarn because of the halo from the alpaca and the silk. I don't think you're seeing the beautiful detail in the ribbing at the collar, along the raglan, at the side of the body, and at the base of the body, as well as into the cuff. Because of the halo, I don't think you see it as well as it could be if I used a merino. So I may do it again, and I might even do it in the cotton because I think this would be a great spring wear. But for now, I love it. It's super warm. I'm definitely going to wear this skating. And sweater number 33 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. Purchase pattern on Ravelry, and it has wonderful detail. Check it out. This next finished object took 2 patterns to create it. This is the dump truck raglan pattern, and the dump truck design that you're seeing here is by Linda Morehouse, and the actual shaping of this raglan sweater is by Twisted Knitwear. And the reason I mixed the 2 patterns is because Linda's dump truck design is a vest and with a little hat, and I didn't want a vest. I wanted it to be a sweater for one of our great nephews. So let me tell you a little bit about this design. The raglan is DK weight, and it calls for 3.5 millimeter needles US 4 and 4 millimeters US 6 DK weight yarn, and I used about 400 meters of this, And the blue that I'm using here is Burnett Softy Baby Solids, and it's a navy color. And then I used a number of other colors in the dump truck chart that comes from Linda's pattern. So I created this size 2 to 3 raglan, and I like this raglan. I've used it a ton of times because it has a multiple number of sizes and it fits the kids really well. So, and that's a free pattern on Ravelry. The dump truck pattern is a purchase pattern on Ravelry, and I added that dump truck by duplicate stitch. So the raglan is a top-down construction. You start with the ribbing for the neck, and it's your typical raglan increase, and then you put the sleeves on hold, you finish the body, and there's a ribbing at the bottom, and there's also the ribbing on the sleeves. Once I finished, I had the chart for the dump truck, and I did this with duplicate stitch. What was I thinking? I could have done it as intarsia, which probably I should have. However, I did it as duplicate, and it was a lot of work. Will I do it again? I don't think so. If I did it again, I would likely do this with Intarsia. Um, I have 3 more that I want to make. I bought the yarn, this navy blue yarn, and I have all of this yarn was from my stash. It's DK Yarn Merino, and I've listed it all on my Ravelry page that you can see how much I used of each of these different colors. Um, I also made a little drawstring bag to gift the Tonka trucks or the dump truck patterns. I'm putting them into these drawstring bags. I follow Allie from A Little Drop of Wonderful. She has a YouTube channel. She's a knitter, a crocheter, and a sewer, and she shows a step-by-step tutorial on how to do these little drawstring bags. They have a square or bottom. They are lined, and I lined it with some black fabric, and they have a drawstring casing, and I just used the fabric from the Tonka trucks to make the drawstring. And so I'm going to gift all the little dump truck sweaters in with these little bags. The only thing is I am not going to do the next 3 with duplicate stitch. In Linda's pattern for this dump truck, she also has a hat, and it has a smaller chart or motif for the dump truck. So I might in the next couple sweaters is put a number of dump trucks along the bottom, or maybe into the yoke, or maybe one on the yoke section, but I'm definitely not going to be doing this detailed stitching. It looks great. I'm really happy with it, but it was a ton of work. And if I show you the inside, see all those pieces that had to be, um, yeah, sewn in. So I love it. I think it's going to be a great little gift. I also bought some dump truck books and or construction site books about all the different trucks, and so I'm going to put that with these little sweaters inside the drawstring bag, and that's going to be a future gift for our great nephews. So that was dump truck sweater number 1, and there are more to come. So those are my knits for December 2025. It was a gentle, not rushed month for knitting, as I was often in the car traveling to family and friends. So hopefully there was something here that you found inspiring or tweaks your interest to search for a pattern to create this new year. Next, I'd like to share with you what I have on my needles, my latest WIP. And for those of you who are new here, I say WIP because I only do one project at a time. That's all this brain can handle. So let me show you what I am working on. It is a pair of mittens. They are the Songbird Mittens by Erica Heuser. And this is a paid pattern or purchase pattern on Ravelry. It gives you one size mittens. They say a women's medium, and it's for fingering weight yarn. Calls for US 2 or 2.75 millimeter needles. I'm using 2.5. Yeah, because I don't have 2.75. So let me show you the yarn that I'm using. I am using this a Rebel yarn by King Cole, and it is called Renegade, and it's 5882. It's got tons of blue and gray and green, light blue, navy blue. Yeah. So that's the yarn. I bought that. I think I bought this on the after Christmas sale with this project in mind. And then I had this natural cream alpaca in my stash. So I put these two together to create these songbird mittens. I know when you look at Erica's Ravelry page, she has a number of different colors like red and cream and a golden mustard. And I selected this blue, various blue colors in green, thinking it'd be a great color for the friend for whom I'm making these mittens. And then went to start yesterday. I was like, what was I thinking? Like, look at this crazy coloring. Um, but then I thought, oh well, I bought it. I'm gonna push forward, and I'm really glad I pushed myself because I think it looks great. So it started off with a little bit of the green here at the bottom, and it went into the navy, and then I added the alpaca in there. But it is really, I love the transferring of the colors. It went into a light blue, almost gray, and now it's going back into the darker blue. And I am just loving the design, the process of creating these, and I am loving the color change and the color transfer as I create this. It'll be interesting to see when I get up to, I'm just in the branches and the leaves right now on the front side, but it'll be interesting to see once I get up to the actual bird. So this construction obviously is cuff up. This very, very tiny ribbing, and then you go into this um, cuff that's really created by color, not by texture. And I'm enjoying the process. I'm making this project for a friend. I hope they're going to like it. I think they will. They're a bird watcher, so I think this design is really going to appeal to them. So we'll see how we go. This is what I'm working on now, and I'm enjoying it. So these are a purchase pattern by Erica Heuser. It's the Songbird Mittens. Check it out. It's on Ravelry. So that's what I was up to for the month of December. What's on your needles? What's your dream for 2026? Any favorite patterns that you plan to make? Feel free to share in the comments below. Let me know what you're making, what you're dreaming about. So while we've been online and I've been chatting, our sun has decided to show. So it's turning out to be a lovely day here, and I've got more sunshine in this room to knit for the afternoon. So thanks for joining me. Until next month, be well, happy creating. Bye.